We are live, baby. Once again, it is Star Wars Newsnet live on a Thursday. Wait, sorry, Wednesday, because of, certain things going on in our part of the world. But it is very interesting to join you guys here on a Wednesday night instead of a Thursday. But that just means I had to wait one less day to talk about Star Wars with you both, which is honestly the greatest gift of all. And, we got a lot of things to talk about tonight. Like, I thought we were going to see our first butt in Star Wars for a brief second, like yesterday. I thought that we obviously have a lot of High Republic Vernestra Row things to discuss this evening. Master Soul. I will be honest. I normally outline kind of everything that I would like us to touch on for these shows. I have specific questions that I want to ask each of you already based off of generally what I know about you guys. I have no notes tonight. I have no notes. We're going just completely off the cuff. I felt like my attitude after that episode was one where I just want to go in and just wing it. Like I just really wanted to just say, all right, let's just do this thing. I'm ready for it. And as I know that you guys are going to try to push my buttons a little bit tonight, especially Jay. Like I know that's going to happen. And I'm ready for it. And how are you guys doing? Luke, I know you're
Doing
surviving.
well. Surviving. Yes, surviving, and Jackie and Yord are not. Hey.
Kick them while they're down.
Damn.
I'm doing well. I like this episode. This was good for me. So yeah, I've got a whole Google Doc that's got some notes on it. So if you don't have any,
Okay.
I've got some. So
you don't, I do not need notes. I'm ready to go. Like I
Really?
came out ready. I have been mentally prepping all day for this without writing anything down. If you like, I am like the Jedi that has risen and spent like all day meditating, like by levitating myself all day long, getting
like
into,
Torben.
like Torben, basically. There was a literal shield around me as people were trying to, get me to handle my actual responsibilities in life today. And they were like May trying to kick down that shield. Like, Tyler, you need to do some work for your, actual job. No, it's not happening. Jay, how are we doing today?
Doing pretty great. There's a lot to talk about, like you said. We got 4th of July weekend. Just tomorrow, actually.
It's a few hours.
Yes. Yeah. So we had to schedule earlier showings for today, but no, I'm happy to be here. Absolutely. So
yes, going forward, we'll be back on the Thursday night shows. Next Thursday will be a little bit unique. Luke and I will be in the same location Thursday night. You might I'll be actually visiting Luke next week. So if you see us in a different room next Thursday, it's probably because I'm literally just like in the room right next to him as we're recording the live show next week. So if he says something ridiculous and I throw the headset off next week and go back, it might just be like you might see me like smack him like live or something like that. But I know like people, I'm ready to get into this. Drop in the chat. Let's drop what you feel like your rating for the episode was out of 10. I'm really curious about this one coming off the heavy action sequence that we got from episode 5. This one obviously to me felt more tense than the previous week, but for obviously entirely different reasons. I'm going to say it. It's my highest rated episode of the season.
Let's go.
Loved this episode. The only problems I had with it were I felt like, for the most part, it's like a lot of the show, we needed a little bit more time. Like there just needs to be a little more time for these episodes. I don't know why we're limited to these 35 minutes. It just feels like similarly to like Andor. If we had 45 minutes to tell some of these stories, the episode would draw out. But I gave this one 8.5. It is the highest rating of this season for me. I gave last week an 8, and then the rest were like 5.5. So like this is like really strongly the best one because of a couple of things, and I'll throw it to one of y'all. We get this like it means to lovers like trope here that we don't see like too often in Star Wars, I guess. And I think this one actually has the potential to be really fun and really exciting versus maybe like the Rey Kylo one wasn't as fleshed out, as people may have liked it to be, even for those who are super fans of that. And so we had that. Master Soul, Lee Jung Jae delivered the best performance of the season in so far in this episode. Just tremendous. I have a lot to say on Vernestra Rowe and some things I'm upset with in regards to that character. But overall, the tension on this episode was incredible. It was like just like you felt like you had like a knife just like right there and like about ready to stab you. And if you move just it flinch just a little bit, like you're dead and you're done. But it never really happened. We got 2 more episodes, 8.5. Where you at, Luke?
I'm gonna come in right close behind you with an 8. So yeah, I believe last week I was at an 8. This one holds steady. I feel like we got to the same. I was feeling the same level of enjoyment, but they went about it a very different way. This is a lot of dialogue, a lot of tension that was brought about in a different way than the action. So I felt just as good about it, and I liked the change of pace, but not really the change of like feeling. So I felt strongly about this as well. So I loved it.
I feel like they strung you along a little bit too much in this episode, but I think given all the other things they were hinting at, I feel like it was justified. But again, if next week doesn't deliver on what they're setting up in this one, then you go back and retroactively, it's like, okay, this episode probably doesn't sit so well in the grand scheme of things. I'm just really confident in the show right now, where I wasn't after the second, third episodes. Jay.
Oh boy, here we go.
This is gonna be a fun one tonight.
This is gonna be a fun one. You know why? Because I'm gonna give this episode a 5.
A 5. This is your lowest one, right?
This is my lowest one.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. You have the floor. Just brief synopsis, and then we'll get into the finer points.
Absolutely. I'm not trying to yuck anyone's yell. Obviously, a lot of people.
You'll probably get more support from some parts of the Star Wars community by being negative on the Acolyte than you would by being positive, actually.
That is true, actually. we might, so this might be a good balance of opinions here.
Right.
But no, I mean, like, I'm not trying to, like, crap on anyone's enjoyment of the show. Absolutely not. Funny enough, though, like, we here at the Star Wars Newsnet staff, we have our own Discord channels, and we've been talking about it a lot. A lot of people have been saying, like, what you guys have been saying. Sydney, who wrote our review for this episode, put up a great write-up on our website, and it's really comprehensive, goes over every single detail of the episode. Please go check it out if you haven't. She did a great review. She really loved this episode too, and she was saying how really tense, like you guys were saying. But for me, like, personally, I just think that, like, after the last episode of how action-packed and how that one was just so, like it was just like a full, like, foot pedal to the metal. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that one was just like full throttle, and it was just like super fast, super quick, lots of action. This one, it just felt like really weird. It just, like, now we're taking our foot off the gas. And then so after that, I was just like, oh, this is kind of boring, in my opinion. I didn't really go for it too much of the tension and for it too much of the implied, like, romance. I was just like, I could see it, like, coming a mile ahead. And I think I kind of even predicted it, like, last week. I was like, oh, they're probably going to do, like, a switcheroo. Or maybe May is going to be the one to be joining the Jedi. Maybe Osha's going to be the one to become part of the Sith.
Yeah, so we talked about that,
yeah. So, I mean, I think that, like, I guess it's just a matter of, like, personal taste, maybe. But, yeah, I don't know. Like, for a lot of the stuff that, like, you guys found great, I was like, not for me. So, nonetheless, let's get into it, though. I mean, there's a lot to talk about. Vernestra, Keimer, all of it, right?
So, as president of the Vernestra Rowe fan club, I am president. I am the chairman. I am the leader of the board of directors. I'm, we'll put that to the side for a moment. We're gonna table some Vernestra Road talk for a few minutes. I want to address something you said about it just completely taking its foot off the gas. I would disagree with that. I think if anything, it still had its foot on the gas, like completely down, but just in a different way. Like last week was just so intense with the action, and to me, it's kind of like if you look at like not Tales of the Jedi, like Clone Wars, the final season of Clone Wars, like people talk about the Siege of Mandalore arc being this incredible action-packed arc from start to finish. But what makes those arcs and a lot of these TV shows so great, or the One Way Out episode in Andor that's just like intense from start to finish in its own way, being that drama, is there are all these episodes that build up to those moments. And so we just had one of those insane, like action-packed episodes from start to finish. And so instead of doing anything remotely similar to that, they said, we're going to take some time and really dig into like the psyche of our characters afterwards, staying true to them, but really building off what happened. And to me, that was just as tense, knowing that you're probably going to see Osha kind of start to turn a little bit, because she's given like this illusion of choice from Chimere, but really she's like trapped. Like she's trapped and she's struggling with her emotions, and just waiting to see how that manifested itself was, to me, just very gripping. Like there was a lot of tension there. This whole kind of like romantic kind of element that is being, played into there, and Keimer completely changing his strategy on how he was going after May and how he's working with Osha. It like shows like this complexity to this character that's beyond what I think we had seen already, which was like he's trying to use fear and intimidation on May. Okay, well, now that didn't work. I'm gonna go for this whole seduction like method. And then Soul, I mean, they spent like 45 seconds. There was no dialogue. All he did was stand at a panel, and that may have been the best part of the episode, just seeing the different emotions that he was battling in that moment.
That was incredible.
And I'll throw it to Luke. I want to get your thoughts on that, because I think we're in a similar vein. So hit on anything that I missed, and then we can throw it back to Jay. And Jay, I want to know from you, since you thought that wasn't necessarily the most, that really you weren't really gripped by some of the softer scenes in this. What did it need for you to actually to sell you? Like, what would it have made like the difference for you? But Luke, you go ahead and go first.
Yeah, I'll just continue off you and say that it felt like a very appropriate follow-up to episode 5, where there's so much lightsaber action and death and so much action. And I felt like this is what I was really wanting, is the characters to give us, what they're thinking, their reactions to the horrific events of episode 5. And we get to see exactly what I was wanting. Soul is completely emotionally torn, and he has to deal with that. Again, Lee Jong-jae just, I mean, it feels like I'm really there. It feels like it's not even acting. He looks like he is so torn up at that panel. And yeah, we just get a lot of dialogue and processing that we, normally in a book, you'd get all these paragraphs of like internal inside their head stuff. But I thought Leslie Headland did a really good job of kind of giving that to you, but on screen, translating that to live action. We just got to see Chimere's, more of its intentions. A lot of the way that he thinks is finally revealed. We've been waiting 5 episodes to see really like where is his angle. And so, yeah, I really wanted to see into the psyche of these characters more, especially after episode 5. So yeah,
I think we got the angle.
Got that. Yeah.
Well, I think we got his angle. I think we know his motive. We have his angle now. It's just a matter of like, how is he going to fully manifest that? Like we heard that with the whole like he wants the power of 2. He wants a pupil. He wants the power of 2, and that screams like Sith to me, or even a callback to the dyad for those. But based off of like, if you haven't gone and read the Leslie Headland interview on Collider, you should go do so, because Leslie does say in that, and Maggie asked the question, and Leslie says how it's more of a play on the Sith than it would be the Dyad, but mostly because about the Sith probably have more information though on the Dyad than the Jedi do at this point, because they're trying to seek ways to consolidate power and to gain more power at this time. So it could be a little bit of both, but could lean more towards the Sith. But Jay, after hearing both of our kind of spiels here on why we thought this episode really worked in terms of being like a quieter episode in terms of maybe action, what didn't work for you? And if it's the fact that you could see it coming from a mile away, I would love to know why that necessarily was something you weren't a fan of, because I think like we all thought this was going to happen, but similarly, like we thought Chimere was going to be the Sith, and that didn't lessen the like impact or the cool factor of his like appearance, I guess.
Yeah, no, sure. I don't want to like diminish your guys' points because you guys both bring up good stuff. I mean, I think that the performances, Lee Jung Jae, obviously, already gave him his credit. I think part of the reason why it just didn't grip me was because I felt like there was a lot of like tonal shifts that just felt really awkward. We're jumping from sexual tension between Chimera and Osha, and then we jump to kind of weird, kind of slapstick goofball humor with May, and then
and Basil
and the Pip. Yeah, and then I'm like, what is this? So there was that aspect. So it just that's one thing I've always felt from the beginning, which is like, yeah, just like tonally speaking, I wish you just kind of stick to one. So that's part of the reason why like the episode didn't click for me. As far as like the tension and the build up, I mean, I get that, and about like it being predictable. I just think that like at some point though, I think that as a writer, it's okay to be predictable.
Right.
Again, we saw the whole Sith reveal coming a mile away. It's okay to be predictable. It's just that when you get what it is that you were expecting, I think it has to kind of just amaze you more so than just like how it's executed. Because again, like we were expecting this, and I predicted like, they might do a switcheroo where May and Osha might be switching sides, but it kind of played out like exactly as I anticipated, and without like much impact or without much like gravitas or bravado. Because like I predicted last week, I bet like May and Osha are probably going to get discovered right away. That happened this week. And then so it just didn't play out like as impactful as I think it could have been, or that like I just wanted it to.
I understand. I just feel like with Osha and everything that we get from her moving forward, we're talking about like tonal shifts.
Yeah,
I think it's okay to have big, massive tonal shifts in an episode, especially one that is as serious as this one. It's like nice to have something that lightens the mood every once in a while, because I think at the end of the day, this also is still Star Wars. And so like, it's nice to have something that does release that tension. You could take a deep breath. Have you ever seen the Planet of the Apes movies? The new, so in the third one, right? Bad Ape, that movie, the third movie with Caesar is maybe the most intense, like just really dramatic, gritty movie, of the whole trilogy. It's super intense the whole time. You're like holding your breath. You're wondering who's gonna die. But then there's the one random ape that's like a major goofball. Where they're like, "Hey, go look outside." And he's like, "Me?" And he's like, "Oh no!
Yeah,
oh no! Oh no! Oh no!" And then like Maurice yells at him, and then he's like, "Okay." Like, you know what I mean? Like, and it's hilarious, and you laugh, and it just lets you take a deep breath before you get right back into it. And so like we just get done with, there's like the big sexual tension with Osha, but also like at a deeper level, like her struggling with who she is and what to do with the emotions that she's kind of suppressed for so long because she was told that's not okay to have those. And then we have Soul, who's literally just, in a sense, he admits that he nearly lost himself and was thanking May, who he thought was Osha, to, like for bringing him out of that. And so to have Basil, like this, like walking beaver chipmunk or whatever he is, kind of like do a whole like Rocky Balboa, like let's put him up and go and step on like the foot. Like I just love that Star Wars in that moment was like, hey, and they in the show was just like, hey, just take a deep breath. This is still Star Wars. It's goofy too. Like just take a deep breath, and then we're gonna get right back into it. But it let me just take a breath just to go, okay, here we go. Now we can continue on. Luke, did you feel the same thing from that, or was it maybe a little too much?
I think that's the purpose that it did serve. It's also got its own thing going on. It's not just slapstick comedy. It's definitely funnier than what's going on with Kamir and Osha. But yeah, I mean, any scene with Basil in it, I think, is intended to be just a break from the tension. Because, I mean, he's used in episode 5 as the tracker to kind of just be funny in a scene where there's Umber Moths and it's death and it's dark. And so you kind of cut to him when it's time to, bring the seriousness back a level because you're getting a little bit too far in. You're getting too little serious. So I think he's used sparingly, but in the correct moments and in the correct amount of time. So it gives you that time to just, as you said, take a breath, get your head back because we're going back in.
Yeah. Let's talk about the sexual tension. Let's talk about the, enemies to lovers trope that we see in this. Let's talk about that. And then we'll get into Vernestra Rowe. I'm ready for Vernestra Rowe talk. Like, you trust me. I am so ready. But we saw this, we predicted there would be something like this happen. And personally, I'm all for it. When I read Sydney's review today on Star Wars Newsnet, I knew she would be all about it because, like, you saw Sydney in our spoiler chat. She's like, Sydney says, I pretty much ship everybody. So, you don't have to tease me with a good time here. So, Jay, if you are a little bit on the fence about this, all right, I want to know, is it just the whole, like, is it the, because some people just aren't big fans of the whole enemies to lovers like trope and storyline in general, which I understand. Like, there is, to some degree, you're watching this show and you're like, why is she letting him, grab her like right there at all? Because he just broke the neck of one of her best friends. Like, you know what I mean? So give me your thoughts on why that, doesn't work for you right now.
I think that, like, I think it sort of works. I just don't think that, like, I don't buy the chemistry. I actually don't. I actually think that there's not, like, a whole lot there between the two performances. Maybe that's it. Maybe I just need to see more of them.
What about it though? Like, dive into that a little bit. Like, let me know what you're thinking on that just a little bit.
On like the
chemistry, like, yeah. What's lacking for you?
Maybe it's because like they haven't been on screen all that much together. I mean, like, well, I guess there was like a little bit like like the second episode, I believe, where he shows up, and then they're in the shop together. But I just don't buy that. I guess maybe, I don't know. Maybe like it's just like for me, I don't see like why Osha is into him. If it's really going that direction that we think it's going, because I don't. Yeah, like you said, I mean, the guy just killed two of your best friends.
Right.
And
it may not be that intense. Like this may not be
exactly
like
right.
We're gonna go, make out behind the rock cliffs next week or anything.
Yeah,
that's not. It wasn't trying to imply that far right now.
I don't think it's really gonna. One could hope. Maybe not me. I don't hope. I'm not hoping for that outcome. But yeah, like I just think that like I didn't buy like the like kind of just like this rapid switch, or if it is like if that is what it's going, it just felt like maybe like I don't know, like maybe I have to see more of it like later on. But at the moment, I'm not really buying it.
Okay, Luke.
So,
what do you think, Luke?
I think what is working for me. So I think I'm in a weird spot on this because I love romance. I want to ship more people than I don't. And it's hard for me to root for this because of Chimere. And I don't think he's like, I feel like with Kylo and Rey, I think we had telegraphed moments where we knew Kylo was on the fence, the light and the dark are tearing him apart. He could go either way. And so I think that worked because I wanted both of them to turn out to be on the light side, wanted them to be good. And so I don't feel like Chimere is gonna end up a good person.
Yeah,
so that's like the only reason that I don't ship them officially. But I think I think the romantic tension is really working, and I did like it and I did enjoy it because he's playing this role of opening up her mind of, I think you've already even alluded to this, like he's trying to like break down these dogmatic walls that she has, that the Jedi think this way.
Right.
And like the only way you can use the Force is this light side that you've been taught. And if you don't use that, it withers, but I know a secret, other way. So I was really eating it up. I loved the chemistry. If they do end up like exploring more of this romance, I'd love it. I want them to. I always root for the good in people, and I don't see a lot of good in Chimere, so I don't like want him to drag her down because I know she's got a lot of good in her. So I mean, that's like my only thing that's like keeping me from being like, get married now. Because I do love it. I think it's a good romance. Honestly, it's got me hooked. So
here's the thing. From the very beginning, obviously she's following him around. She's nervous. There's a lot of anger. She's been suppressing all of these emotions of being angry with the Jedi, being angry with herself, being frustrated with the circumstances of which she's in. She just learned or at least Soul alluded to moments before the stranger shows up, before Chimere shows up, that there is more to what happened on Bryndock than you know about. And so there is now this level of, is this person that I value more than anyone, have they been lying to me or keeping things from me this whole time, which probably adds to compounds to her frustration with the Jedi. She just learned May was alive days ago as well. All of these things are swirling inside of her. Chimere, just the act, like you're gonna laugh when I say this, but just him literally just stripping down and walking into the water and just complete utter vulnerability. That was more vulnerability than the Jedi probably showed her in her entire time there.
I believe it.
And the way that he came up and spoke to her plainly and clearly about not only what her emotions are, but being able to relate to her and those emotions. And none of this is from the standpoint of Chimere is in the right. He's right on. You should do this because Imby Wilson just said this. He wants a pupil. He is manipulating her. This is the corruption that we're seeing. It all is part of the plan. He's clearly learned from May. He's like, I tried to do this whole fear and intimidation approach, and that didn't work. Osha's completely different. I have to do a different approach. I have to appeal to a different side of her. I was cast away as a Jedi. She was cast away as a Jedi. I can really use that and play into that and use those emotions, desire, anger, fear, aggression, that are going to help me ultimately with my end goal. But I don't think this is some sort of scenario where he's courting her to invite her for brunch at First Watch next week. I don't think that's actually that's not really what this is.
Right.
But he wants a pupil. He wants the power of two, and the darkness that exists in him is what drives him at this point. It's not I don't think out of care. thank you, Darth Lopez, for letting us know that Darth Plagueis is coming. I would love nothing more than to see Darth Plagueis. But so let's talk about, if we're going to talk about Chimere's inner darkness, a lot of that is probably stemming from him being cast aside as a Jedi. And so I will relinquish the floor for a moment, and I want to throw it to you guys because I wonder, do you have the same idea? And, it seems pretty clear and hinted at about who Chimere's master would have been, or at least someone important in Chimere's life at some point would have been. And what role do you think that person played in who Chimere is today? Jay, take it away.
Oh boy. Your favorite High Republic character? This might be another. I was just thinking about this. This might be another kind of Last Jedi, Luke Skywalker kind of thing. But yeah, no, I mean, like in the episode, it hints that, hey, Chimere's master could have been Vernestra Rowe, and obviously, like, it's pretty obviously hinted at. With the way Vernestra is acting, with how she's wanting to get involved, with the way how it's juxtaposed, even how you have the juxtaposition of Chimere, him talking with May, juxtapose that, not May, excuse me, but Osha, juxtapose that with, like Vernestra Rowe being on the planet and her taking our light whip. And
immediately after they're talking about his scars.
And then like talking about the scars, like you have the scars on his back that look a little bit like whiplashings. And then here is Vernestra Rowe taking out her light whip. And I was just thinking about it, kind of puts a whole different spin on an outlook on that light whip now. A weapon that, a lot of us High Republic fans are like, wow, what a cool weapon. Now we're like, ooh.
I still think it's cool.
Oh yeah, no, I mean, it looks cool. And
Can't
then,
wait to see it again.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of possibility with it. I'll tell you what, definitely puts there's a different image in my head now.
Yep.
I will say this, maybe just as like a shimmer of light, but like speaking of like the Last Jedi and it was like Luke, they kind of did do something similar where they painted this revered hero as something that like maybe not, kind of deconstructed that individual and said like maybe they're not as what we thought they were. But then like in the Last Jedi, it does kind of like revert back and say like, wait, maybe actually they still are good. And like the Last Jedi, I know a lot of people hate that movie because like if they Luke
not
is
here,
like
baby, not here, baby.
Yeah, absolutely. Love it. I'll say this though, like a lot of people say like, oh, Last Jedi ruined Luke. Well, I mean, when you actually get to when you actually get to like the what actually happened and when Luke explains like his reasoning, you're like, oh no, he didn't. He's not a monster like everyone painted him. He has like his reasons. So maybe that might be the case here with Vernestra, right? Because I mean, like you guys, we love the High Republic books. I'm not the biggest Vernestra. Yeah, you love Vernestra Rowe, Tyler. I could care less, honestly. I'm not that big of a fan. But like I'll say this, there's still a lot to play out here, and there's a few more episodes. So I think that there's a lot of like she has a lot of time to clear her name, so to speak.
I 100% agree, but Luke, throwing it to you, you could give me your Vernestra Rowe thoughts, and then I have a official PR statement as president of the fan club to issue tonight.
Yeah, so I mean, this is really revolving around who Chimere's master was that threw him away, and so I just want to throw this in there that it's heavily hinted that it's Vernestra, but it doesn't have to be. In fact, when I was watching this on my first time through, I was heavily considering the fact that it was his Sith master that threw him away. And so he's kind of a splinter from the Sith. He'd still be a Sith, but I was kind of getting that feeling. But I think the parallels, the juxtapositions, a lot of the imagery is pointing toward, the scar looks like a whip, scar, and we see Vernestra with the whip. So I think it's pretty heavily hinted that it's Vernestra. And as far as like what this would do to the like High Republic publishing initiative to have her, I don't think it affected too much if this really was just like a Chimere even lost his head, he failed the trials, he lashes out and does something. Like if he's in the wrong and Vernestra is not, I don't think that damages her character or anything. I've seen people even wondering if maybe Vernestra has a lot of darkness in her, or if she's like a Sith herself or something. And so I've been like,
just save that. I got that unlocked. Don't worry, I got that unlocked here in a second.
Okay, you got that. So I was seeing that and I was like, that would not bode well for the books. But yeah,
I'm gonna use stronger language than that.
Jay, I think that was a good parallel that you made of kind of like Luke. Like our heroes don't have to be perfect and infallible for them to be good heroes and good role models for us, even because we all make mistakes. And so even if we find out that Vernestra has messed something up in Chimere's training, if she is to own up to a little bit of fault for that, I think that would bode well for her. I mean, I think that shows growth for her, that she can do that, she can carry on. And I think Soul's about to go through that. He's about to do this same kind of journey, own up to the council of what really happened. I hope he really goes through with that. And so, yeah, I think that's where I'm at with her. She's not bad. She hasn't lost any graces with me. So I don't know if she ever really could. I love that character too.
So I'm with you. There will be, I really do think there is going to be another Sith that makes an appearance in this show. I really do. I think there's going to be another Sith, whether it's a Darth Tenebrous, Darth Plagueis, a new Sith, and they just say we're going to do our own thing with the Sith, and those two Sith come a little bit later. Who knows? I'm not here to speculate on that. But I'm going to put my, president of the fan club hat aside for one moment. I put it back on in a second. I'm going to put it aside for a moment. Here's one thing that I will not tolerate, though, is the Sith Lord, Vernestra could be a Sith Lord slander. That is absolutely ridiculous. There is zero chance that would happen. I am not wanting to. If you are watching the show and you have not read the High Republic books, I do not begrudge you for thinking that, though, because they do hint at this darkness that could be inside her. So I don't begrudge people who have read the books and are thinking that. Now, if you've read the books and you think that they're going to put this character in live action for the first time and they're like a secret Sith Lord, like, get out of here. You're crazy. Like, you're done. You're done. There's no way that's happening. But there is a very real possibility, and this looks really bad for her right now, that she has done something that contributed to the irreparable harm done to push Chimere down the path that he ultimately went. Now, we don't know that for certain. It could literally be he failed his trials, and she was part of the group that said, looks like you're not going to be able to be a Jedi. And he got so upset, he was in a rage and attacked the Order, and she, attacked him instead of having his back, which in an instant like that, it's like, you know what? That could be justifiable if he's trying to kill everyone and you're retaliating. But we don't know. It could just as easily been she didn't have his back when she could have, like Anakin had Ahsoka's back when her back was against the wall, like Stellan had Elzar's back in the Clone Wars when Elzar would do things that definitely were not in the lights. Like, we've seen Jedi that have chosen to stand by others, and it's possible she did abandon him and throw him away, and the lashes on his back are just as much her fault as they are his. And that, to me, is what is frustrating. And I'm not going to sit here and say that a character 100 years after these books has no place in changing. Like, they can't change in 100 years. Like, it's been 100 years. This shouldn't be the same, 15 to 18-year-old girl that we're seeing in the books. But at the same time, I would like to at least get a hint of the same Vernestra that I know being there. Like in the like take The Last Jedi, 30 something years after Return of the Jedi, right? Like 30 years.
30.
Even though Luke has completely isolated himself, the emotions that Mark Hamill conveys in his performance as Luke Skywalker, you still know that's Luke Skywalker. Like just seeing how broken he was over disappointing Leia because of Ben Solo. Like that feels like Luke, someone that cares so much for his family that failing them in some way would cause him to really react. When I'm watching Vernestra in this show, and the biggest problem for me is not like what they're doing, like necessarily like what her character is doing. It's that, and I'm not trying to say Rebecca Henderson's doing a bad job or the writing itself is just bad, but the overall character just feels bland. It just feels bland. There doesn't feel like there's much like an emotional appeal there. There's no punch being like packed like there. It just feels very just man, like it feels like the most boring aspects of the prequel Jedi that we're seeing, that they're just kind of just existing and doing their like political like schemes of trying to maintain the status quo. She seems worried to this, at least she's worried that she's going on this mission herself to see what's wrong, but it's just frustrating to see one of the most charismatic characters, and this is more just a High Republic fan, like one of the most charismatic characters, whether you like Vern or not. She's one of the biggest characters of the High Republic because she really is someone who is a prodigy, takes an apprentice on at a young age and helps keep that apprentice from going down a dark path. And to see her now as just this kind of stoic, bland character is frustrating, and I think I'm more upset about that than any potential darkness that could happen, because if I saw like maybe some more emotion from her, I'm like, okay, there's maybe she's dealing with trauma that's going to happen at the end of these books, but right now it's just like she doesn't feel like Vern. And if you're going to take one character only from the books, because they were very specific, like we felt like Vernestra was the best character to include in this show, but you're not telling me why. Like, why does that make sense? And I think that's what ultimately is the biggest frustration. Now, putting the hat back on the Vernestra Rowe fan club.
Let's go.
We are completely confident here at headquarters that we are going to get a moment where she comes in and is totally redeemed. She has been in the right this entire time. We're going to see an epic display of lightsaber and light whip skills with an iconic "For Light and Life" chant as she goes into battle to defeat the darkness and ultimately give us the great performance that Vernestra Rowe is due in live action Star Wars. That is what we are expecting. That is what is happening in episode 8. You can book it. All right, hats back off. We're deeply concerned.
Tell me,
we are deeply concerned.
Is the hat made of tinfoil or like?
Sorry. The hat is made of cortosis because it blocks out all sense. It's a sensory. Yep. It's just me and the Force. It's just me and my fandom. There is nothing else that can penetrate it. It's just me and myself.
Look, I think that rant and that entire explanation was great, Tyler. I love it. I'm not here to go and crap on your enthusiasm. I love it.
That's good. It's just one of like the 2 or 3 characters I love most from that time period. It's probably number 1. So it's just, it's like really far up there, like her and like Elzar, and then maybe like Ziri and Von 2, like from the Phase 1. But anyway, so it's just really frustrating to feel like how this character is going, and it has nothing to do with possibly her doing something wrong. Like I'm fully okay with her doing something wrong. I think I'm more frustrated. It just feels like kind of bland. Like I'm not excited when I'm watching her scenes, and like those are the scenes I was most excited to watch as a book fan. Like it felt like we were finally given. Like it seems like book fans never win in Star Wars. Like they either kind of retcon some things or they might change a few items, but like very rarely does it feel like you're gonna throw something in. Now it does happen. It happens from time to time, but this one felt like this is for the High Republic fans, and it does kind of feel like it's just why. Again, 2 episodes. There's a lot that could change in 2 episodes, and they could be let's wait to see what the full story is before we start judging it. But I throw it to you, Luke.
Just wanted to, since we're on this exact topic, I just finished reading A Test of Courage by Justina Ireland, which is all about Vern as one of the main characters. And so we already see in this book, she's already dealt with a Padawan who has dabbled in the dark side or struggled heavily with it. And so I think it would just almost make us more confident that she already has experience with this situation. So for her to have another Padawan that has struggled or maybe even gone to the dark side, I think that she would know the exact best way to handle that. And so I think that kind of helps me to relieve any fault that she would have. I think she'd know better than anyone else in the order how to deal with that. And so I think if there's anything going on between her and Chimere, I think the blame is more on Chimere handling something extremely poorly than her. So I think she's got.
But like, who knows? Like, we would all agree, I think, that Obi-Wan made some serious mistakes during his time training Anakin. But like, that doesn't diminish the great Jedi we think Obi-Wan is. Like,
True.
Chimere could definitely come from Vernestra's, Padawan lineage, but it doesn't have to necessarily diminish who she is as a Jedi. But the fact that if her light whip is the reason that, he has burns all over his body and scars, and ultimately she's the one that pushed him down that path, that's a different story that I'm interested in. Sydney's on here. Sydney, I just got done talking about how we got done talking about how great your review was, but in particular, I'm with you. We are going to ship these characters as long as we can. So I want us to answer this question from Manslayer. It says, do you think by now season 2 and 3 is happening, considering reaction to review bomb fan conversation and potential Tenebrous and Plagueis at the end? Give us a second to think about that, because I do want to say a couple things. One, there was the note about her ship being named like the Kentaros, which is named after Emery, which I thought was a great nod. And then I did say this in our chat too on Discord, MB Wilson, but yes, Emery was taken on after he had like the brief flirtation with the dark side. She helped him get out of it and took him on at the end to kind of help him do all of this. But Jay, what do you think about us? Let's not ignore like a season 3, but just even the idea of the Acolyte getting renewed. We have 2 episodes to go, so how those 2 go honestly could impact a lot of what happens with this. But Leslie, I will say this: she has been very adamant that season 1 has a very clear ending. She said that does not mean that we don't have more stories ready to tell and can continue to tell, but she does say that there is like a definitive ending. Now, that could just be smoke. Who knows? Like, these people lie out of their teeth all the time to preserve certain things. So who really knows? But we'll take her at her word for right now. But Jay, what are you thinking?
Here's the thing going on. Here's the thing, though, is that like most TV shows, sequels, and like these big projects that like a lot of times these studios nowadays announce that way ahead of like even before like a show premieres. They'll say like, oh, season 2 is already greenlit, even though season 1 hasn't even started yet. Like we see that all the time with Netflix shows, on Amazon Prime. There has been nothing.
They didn't do that with Ahsoka.
That's true. They didn't do that with Ahsoka.
And all indications right now is that this is streaming just as close, if not even better than Ahsoka. Again, we don't know the official numbers, but there's been some reports that it's right there with Ahsoka, if not even a little bit ahead. But I mean, I think the backlash is the thing that's more important to consider.
I think here's the thing, like backlash, yes, does make a huge impact. Review bombing, like regardless of like how quote unquote effective review bombing may be, or just like what people's thoughts about it. I mean, it is still a good indicator to some degree of how a community is feeling. So, but like then again, you also have to look at the numbers. The numbers and the viewership are hard, concrete data, and unfortunately we don't have too much of that. It's Disney who has that. I think, and again, depending on how this season ends, I think that they probably will go ahead with a second season, even though that there is this huge amount of negative reception.
Okay.
That being said, though, I think that they probably will be taking that into account, and there probably will be some course correction. We've seen that so often. That's why.
I think that you are pretty much spot on. I hope that they dig their heels in and do a season 2. Some of this might be, do some of these actors want to come back after experiencing some of this? But again, we have to see where this ends up. This could be a situation where most of our characters aren't even around, like at the end of the season. Who knows? I would love to see a season 2, and I would love to see Disney and Lucasfilm dig their heels in on what they want to do moving forward, because I am sick and tired of like placating to some people. They are going to find a way to get frustrated over like anything. Like they're going to find a way to get frustrated over anything at all. There is such a massive difference between us getting on here and having an hour-long discussion about why this arc doesn't work for us necessarily, or you know, certain things don't work, like we have just been doing this whole time, versus what we have seen from certain sects of like they're just watching this to find the one thing that they can make their 10-minute hate video about to get some money. Yes, so I would love to just dig our heels in on that and say, you know what, we're going to tell these stories. And I think I really do think the positive outweighs this. Some people that I talk to that have watched the show that aren't online for the most part, they're enjoying it. I think that this is going to be one, if they stick the landing with these last 2 episodes, is going to be something that people like enjoy. It starts a little slow, but I think if people are going to hear about that big lightsaber fight, and I think if they stick to that episode, if they stick the landing on the last 2, this could be like something that has legs for people to discover throughout the year.
Yeah, sorry, just to like interject just a little bit more before I get to you, Luke. I'm sorry. But like I think like, well, like I think that they should just change things and course correct, not simply because of the negative reception, but simply because there's just more room to improve.
Oh, 100%.
Like, and then so like we aren't haters of the show. We enjoy this, and like I'm like, no, please, if you're gonna do a second season, do it better. Mm-hmm. That's not to say that this is like completely trash. Like we're not the haters, but like definitely there is stuff that. Like, if they do make a second season, I want to see some changes.
Well, like this last episode felt like a full episode of TV that had just a very clear story that they were telling through one episode. Some of the other episodes feel like they took an hour and a half of content and just picked a random spot to chop.
Yes.
With like a machete. And that's not how you do TV. Like that's not how TV episodes should work. So yes, they definitely have to work on things like that. But just as the concept of the Acolyte and the Star Wars that we're getting, I'm perfectly fine seeing more. Luke, you have the final word on this, and then we'll talk about Master Soul, May, and Brindock and get out of here.
I think you guys have crushed it on this. For wanting a season 2, sign me up. I think I've really enjoyed season 1, and I do agree that there's room to improve, and so I want to see, maybe Vern handled maybe a little better in season 2 or something along the lines of that. So obviously, Sydney Squared, Disney just wants that money. I think they'll make the money with season 2. I think it's ripe for the taking because I've enjoyed this story, and I think if they can. I don't know. I always point this back to like A New Hope and Empire Strikes Back at the OT, that like A New Hope is its own contained story, but yet George easily found a way to keep it going, expand it. And so I think with people like that at the helm that are behind the story group, you can have this whole season 1 wrap up perfectly, neatly, no really loose ends, and it'll be great. And you can honestly go into season 2 even stronger, start new storylines, build off of stuff that happened in season 1. I think I think it's a lock. I want to see it. So
definitely not. I can't say a lock, but like I hope nothing's a lock in streaming nowadays, especially with Disney
that
probably
mucks things up,
consolidating what they want to do. But that is a great point, Luke. I'm 100% with you on that. Honestly, like all of these things, it's going to probably come down to how these last 2 episodes land and do they stick the landing. And a big part of that is us figuring out what happened on Brindok with Master Soul, and he is going to, May is tied on the table and she is going to listen. And I really enjoyed a lot of just like the imagery and the symbolism that was going on with what was happening with May and Osha at their respective places. But I want to know from you guys, how bad is this story going to be? Like for Soul, like how bad is it going to look? Not like the show. I meant like how bad are we going to be like, oh my gosh, like are we going to be done with Master Soul after hearing this? Or is it going to be one where, I hate to be the person that always thinks of like a book reference because I know I'm like limiting a lot of people, but like there is like this, like I will love Elzar Mann to the end of days in Star Wars, and I'm sorry for those of you who aren't like High Republic people, but there's a moment where he literally like kills someone in cold blood, like murder, and if he hadn't have done
spoilers,
he couldn't. This book came out like 3 years ago, okay? Like, like go read it by now. Anyway, if he had not done that, he could have prevented a lot of disaster from happening. But he tells that to his friends in the council, and they like accept him, and we're gonna move on. We're gonna get better from this kind of thing. But what level of horrificness is gonna happen here? Is it gonna be like Luke, where he does something wrong in how he handles Ben, but it's still Luke Skywalker. He becomes the guy that faces the First Order, and we love him. Or is it going to be something that is kind of irredeemable in our eyes? Jay, I'll throw it to you first as well here.
As much as I like Lee Jong-jae and his performance, I think this might just be an irredeemable like story for Master Soul. Sydney Square says Soul murdered everyone and personally lit the mother on fire. Hey, like
this girl is on fire, suddenly playing in the background as Master Soul, just like
with a smile on his face.
Yeah, right. No, I mean, like the thing is, like you can't remember too. Like it's called the Acolytes, and like it's a Sith story. It's told through the Sith perspective, and I think that in order for that to really happen, you kind of do need to paint at least some of the Jedi as the bad guys. And I hate to do this to the character because I absolutely love Master Soul and I love Lee Jong-jae's performance and him as an actor. But I think he's gonna be the guy to fall on the sword and be the bad guy and like be the one who did this terrible thing. So that we see, like May or Osha, one of them, fall to the dark side, and then we do get an Acolyte. And then I mean, like everyone has been saying this, like even if the last episode, I'm sorry, episode 5, but people were saying like, oh, is Master Soul gonna die? He didn't. He might die by the last episode.
His days are probably numbered. What do you think about MB Wilson saying Osha could be tenebrous and anything there? I'm curious. Well, let's get into that in a moment. Let's continue on with Master Soul. Sorry, I don't want to change the subject. So Jay says irredeemable. Jay says irredeemable on Master Soul. Gosh, I hope not. But Luke, where are you going with this?
I will take the opposite fork in the road. I think it's gonna be bad, but I don't think it's going to be irredeemable. We have no idea what that's going to be, but I think it's going to feel a lot like Luke, where it's on both people. Like there's clearly multiple sides to see, and we've only really had one side so far, episode 3 flashback. And so I'm hoping that by the end of episode 7, which we're thinking is going to be a flashback directed by the same person who did episode 3, right, that we're going to feel upset that Soul has made a mistake, but that we also get shown that he is trying his absolute best to fix this. And he's not even gone about that the perfect way. He's hidden it from the council, but we've seen in the present day in episode 6 that he has come to a place where he is at peace with, I need this situation to be fixed, even if it hurts me and my career. It needs to be fixed. I will tell the council. I will suffer any consequences. So I do want it to cut a little deep, maybe a lot deep, because I think we're already seeing that it's going to get resolved, and he's going to own up and fess up here in the current day. So it's kind of where I'm standing on that.
Okay, so we have two different. I feel like I might be in the middle here. So
Okay.
something that I'm hoping for is maybe something happens where it causes like a big divide in the fandom, not like a toxic divide, but a like Master Soul is okay versus like how
Like
can you forgive this guy? Like people
Avengers Civil War kind of
like
thing?
yes, but like people like arguing about whether or not they could find it in their place to, you know, redeem him or not and like be okay with that. I think it would be nice to have like this character that for some people is like he's still a hero, and for others it's like you can't come back from that. I think that might be interesting for Star Wars moving forward. I kind of agree with MB Wilson. I don't think we're gonna see Master Soul do something so horrific. They've just built him up into this. I think he's going to essentially get cold feet when this is happening.
I like that.
And he's just
like that.
There's gonna like maybe Andara and Torben or even like Kalnaka, maybe they're being the aggressors, and he just kind of stands by and lets it happen. Like he has an opportunity to save one of the mothers, and he chooses not to because he doesn't want to interfere with Master Andara or do anything against his own fellow Jedi. And so he does the whole like, you know, I'm just the bystander, and it's like almost like that, you know, guilty by, you know, like not doing anything.
Right, admission.
And so I wonder if that might be what is going to happen, and then we see Andara like leading that charge and everything. Also, I want Sydney to know that, you know, if you joined a little bit later, I hope I did not disappoint. I did my best on the Vernestra row front. I know there was some chat in our Discord channel that I had a lot to answer for today for Vernestra. If you go back and watch that, I hope I did justice for the Vernestra.
Tyler was trying to beat the allegations.
I did my best. But so that's where I'm at with Master Soul. I think that it's going to be more of he's having the guilt, not over he himself has physically done something, but it's more of the inaction that he took whenever that happened. I think that's what's going to happen is we're going to see that just pour out in front of May. And I'm more interested in how May reacts to that, because I wonder if May is going to react out of in anger and just really upset, or is May even going to be the more understanding one? I'm not sure. Like, I'm curious to see how this goes with those two, because ultimately they, I think, both want to go save Osha and like get her back. And so they're, even if she hates his guts, which is probably likely, she's still going to have to reconcile it with herself that she has to work with him in order to save her sister from the dark path that she could be on. Which, last point, MB Wilson says Osha is tenebrous. Which we're past the hour mark, so let's just go for like a couple minutes here, and then we'll get out of here. Will we see another Sith Lord in the last 2 episodes? Yes or no? Luke.
I am saying yes, and I don't want to spoil this or anything. I think Leslie has even said there's at least 2 Sith that are going to be shown in this show. I think Chimera is one. I think we're going to see another one.
Right. I think people are wondering, though, is Osha going to be that Sith? You know what I mean? Like, she's going to be one.
I'm quickly going to say, screw it. I'm going to say yes.
And you're going to give a prediction on who? Or like new Sith, brand new Sith, another brand new Sith? Or is it going to be like a Tenebrous or Plagueis?
I think they're going to kind of wipe Tenebrous from canon. He's not going to make the transition into canon. And I think Osha's going to be that. I think Osha's going to train Plagueis and Plagueis to Sidious. I think that's how we're going to do it. That's my take.
All right. That would be It'd be really interesting. I would love the online discourse from that too would just be more like just moi. But I love that. So Jay,
Yeah.
can you top that level of boldness?
I don't know, man. That was pretty bold. So correct me if I'm wrong though. We haven't even found out the stranger's real Darth, like name. So
Correct.
so I'm thinking, look, they're gonna save that name reveal for the last episode, and it's probably gonna be a big one. I wouldn't be surprised if he is actually Darth Plagueis. So I think that's my prediction. I don't know. Okay, like I don't know for sure. Like I'm not gonna put all my chips on him being Darth Plagueis. No, absolutely not. But I think that the strangers. I think he's gonna be a Sith who people will know about for sure.
I have a question then.
Yeah.
So I have obviously been one of those people that champions how we need to be malleable with certain legend stuff that we've taken as canon that's not canon.
Definitely.
I feel like they've somewhat, correct me if I'm wrong, not necessarily like it's not hardcore canonized Darth Plagueis is immune, but it feels somewhat canonized that he, was immune, like the creatures of the banking clan. And I would actually have a really hard time with him not being that species, Darth Plagueis, at this point. Like, I think I would have a hard time with that.
Yeah, okay.
But Darth Tenebris is a Bith, but I have no issue at all if they change that, like, at all. Like, I do not care at all. So I want to know, like, am I, like, a hypocrite for holding on to, like, that aspect of Plagueis, but not caring about, like, the Bith aspect, but also saying we need to be malleable? Like, am I a hypocrite for that? Or is Darth Plagueis being like that specific type of
species?
Alien species, is that important enough of a hill to be actually upset about?
No, I think that's totally reasonable. I mean, the thing is, like, I always say this, like, when they change a character's race or gender, like in an adaptation, if that is super important or key to that identity of the character, then yes, keep it. But if it's not, like, like I'll use the Ki-Adi-Mundi example. His birthday and his age isn't actually really key to his character, so that's fine. Or like even like for this is kind of like a bad example, but like the Fantastic Four movie with not the new one coming out, but the one with Michael B. Jordan where he was the Human Torch. I think that's fine because, like, yeah, again, like his race, like the Human Torch's race isn't actually like too important in my opinion to his character. So that, like the whole thing about keeping the species thing, yeah, it's a case by case basis, and like in that case though, I think though that like that species, Darth Plagueis being that species should be something at least considered.
Yeah. I don't think we're going to see Plagueis. I will address, Sydney says you can either have immune Plagueis or a Plagueis who has fight scenes. You can have both. I'll push back and say I would love a Sith Lord. I've always felt that I don't think Sidious I didn't want him to have a lightsaber in episode 3. I just want him to have ultra lightning skills. Like maybe Darth Plagueis, he's not fighting. He doesn't need to fight with his saber or anything. He just uses the Force or, uses lightning or something like that. Or that's what his apprentice is for. His apprentice is going to do like Chimera is going to go do the hands-on dirty work, aggressiveness. And he's just going to, learn how to, manipulate the midichlorians.
And this comment makes me think of the Grand Inquisitor and Obi-Wan Kenobi. People were upset at the look of the Grand Inquisitor, but I think if you're going to have someone who's a lot more active,
right?
I think that's where they're getting at. So I get it, yeah.
But hey, Ahsoka's a freaking, Togruta, and they just got the little, her Lakus all over the place. They still made it work. Yeah. They made it work. It's fine.
Absolutely.
We'll see. Putting Plagueis in the season could limit them in future seasons. That for sure. I don't think that we're gonna go there. 2 episodes left. It's gonna be a crazy time. I will be here next week, back on Thursday nights. I'll actually be in Indianapolis with Luke, so that'll be fun. I won't be here for the finale, and it's like, eating at me inside. It's like I'll be on vacation I'll be out of the country that week, so I won't even have like access to my computer at all. Mostly because my girlfriend said you're not bringing your podcasting equipment on vacation.
That's kind of
for
fair.
like, I was like, that's fair. So don't worry, we'll be getting into all of it when I get back. But everyone, thanks for tuning in. It was a great time tonight. Jay, Luke, thanks for hopping in. Just some stuff for the Star Wars Newsnet channel. You can go find the Monday podcast of the week. You can watch on YouTube or listen on Apple or Spotify. Jay hopped on with me, and we talked about everything that we know about Star Wars Outlaws so far. If you love video games, you love Star Wars video games, it's a very insightful show, and I do give Jay a hard time about some video game stuff, and he always meets the challenge because this is why he is the video game guru of Star Wars Newsnet. So go check that out from a couple of days ago. Friday will be a new Who Is Character Spotlight video, and there will be the corresponding article on Star Wars Newsnet by Josh Atkins. We're talking about... I'll let you find out on Friday. And then this Saturday, Luke and I get into the first 2 episodes of the High Republic Adventure, or the Young Jedi Adventures, for the Star Wars Timeline Show, episode 16. So make sure you tune into the Timeline Show. Again, you can watch on YouTube or Apple or Spotify if you want to listen. We'll be back here next Thursday. And then next Monday, the Star Wars Newsnet podcast of the week next Monday is part 3 that Miguel and I did, breaking down each of the Star Wars films that are upcoming. We're talking about Dave Filoni's Heir to the Empire kind of movie, and so we'll be doing that. We recorded that like on Mother's Day, so there's been a couple of little tidbits that have come out since then, but for the most part, nothing's really come out on that front. Jay, go ahead and spend a moment and tell us about Good Games Dude.
Yes, Good Games Dude is my own YouTube gaming channel meant for beginners and even advanced gamers who want to grow in their appreciation of video games. This week, I just did a video talking about why Gears of War is a gaming essential. So feel free to go check that out again on my YouTube channel, Good Games Dude, and I'd really appreciate it.
Luke, is there anything that people need to know about this week's episode of the Timeline Show before we get out of here?
I believe this is the one where we covered my favorite of the kind of 4 stories is kind of the Indiana Jones callback. So
yes, that was a good one.
Some good stuff, some good stories, even though they're meant for children. I got a lot out of them. So check it out.
Yes. So the thing I love about what we're doing with the Young Jedi Adventures, and we have some more episodes to record, is that we're not really going through like we would one of these episodes and we're like breaking it down and like talking about everything because they're for toddlers. But in every episode, there's like a very obvious theme. And then there's so many little Easter eggs for all other Star Wars that's
I'm
like,
such a
put in
sucker
there.
for Easter eggs.
And it's put in there probably for the parents who are sitting there watching it with their kids so they can like see those. And so like we basically are just making lists of all these little Easter eggs or fun things we're seeing. And then we are just breaking those down. Like in one of the shorts, they put like Empire Strikes Back asteroid music when they're navigating an asteroid field. It's just little things that, we catch. So enjoy that this Saturday. Everyone will see you next week, not this same day and time, but back to normal time of Thursday, 10 o'clock Eastern time for the next episode of Star Wars Newsnet Live covering the Acolyte episode 7. Everyone, enjoy your week. We'll see you next time for Light and Life. And remember, we are all the Republic.